Hey guys, Wade Willis here for Wade's Weeb Reviews, here to break down episode 16 of Higurashi Go. So much to get into here, and guys, I'm going to go into like what I think are some of the key points in the episode and what really stuck out to me. Then in the last part of this video, I'm going to do some like theories and stuff. So I'll let you guys know when I get into the theory side, because if you haven't seen any of the original Higurashi, some of the stuff I'm theorizing might be a spoiler to you. And guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please do. I'm covering a lot of Higurashi stuff, doing a playthrough of Umineko, and tons of other anime reactions and stuff as well. And if you like the video, leave a like. It helps a lot. I was kind of expecting like kind of a slow start in this episode. We just had Rika die, 4 horrific deaths the last episode. I was like, okay, they're gonna like kind of pump the brakes a little bit and chill out, maybe do like maybe Rika's doing some like detective work. That's what I was expecting. No, we did not get that. Right away, like I personally, and I'm sure most of you kind of felt like something was off. The way Satoko was acting was really kind of like, even in the beginning, very disturbing to me. I like knew something was up. I was like, ooh, this is like her voice was different than normal. Because usually she has like her voice, and then she does like the kind of like sassy, like, oh, I'm doing all my traps. This was a different voice. This was like a kind of an evil voice to me. Then, like, our guesses were right. Yeah, she was definitely had some ulterior motives here. We see that Rika's like stomach is opened up, like old school Higurashi, and yeah, we were off to the races from there. Rika actually did refer to what was going on as the syndrome with Satoko, which, to my knowledge, they've been alluding to it, but I don't think they've ever said the syndrome. So that was kind of significant for those of you that haven't watched the original. Like, this isn't a spoiler now. Like, when the people are going kind of crazy and scratching their neck, it's called Hanimazawa syndrome. And that now they've actually called it the syndrome. Before, the other arcs, they were talking about parasites in them and stuff. So I thought that was pretty important. Satoko was kind of talking about how this is like a punishment for Rika, and Rika did something horrible, and we find out this is Satoko says this is because Oyashiro was upset that Rika fled the town and wanted to leave. They talked in the last episode that she went to St. Lucia and then was taken back into this time period. So it was kind of cool how we got to see, I mean, middle school Rika with high school Rika kind of standing side by side. To me, guys, compared to all the other people who went crazy and murdered people in the arcs, Satoko looked different to me. And I'm going to go into that more, but we didn't see like a rage in her like we saw with the other people who went crazy and on the killing sprees. She was very cool and calculated, which to me was alarming and I think very significant. And there was a purpose behind that, in my opinion. And the difference of what like Satoko was talking about is something that actually happened in the future outside of like these loops, whereas the other people who were kind of going crazy, some of them were like almost incoherent about their thoughts, didn't really make sense. They were talking about things that happened in other like loops. Satoko was talking about stuff that happened outside of these loops in 1983. So that to me was also significant. I'm going to get into that more later on. And to me, I feel like almost anyone in Rika's situation, you went through that loop for like hundreds of years, at least 100 years, of going through the Higurashi loop over and over again, the June 1983. Once I'm out of that loop, I'm going to want to get the hell out of the Hick Town, as she refers to it. Like, I do not blame her at all. Like, yes, there's happy times, but like, just like you're gonna always have flashbacks when you see certain places where like someone has been gruesomely murdered in a loop. Like it's just that would be so difficult to deal with. And someone or something being upset that she left after going through like the worst torture you could go through is really messed up and selfish. Rika, in my opinion, even though she's being punished for supposedly being selfish, that's not selfish, in my opinion. She had to go through something, remembering everything that no one else had to do. So I have a lot of issues. Um, the person or people or entity that are actually upset with Rika for that, if that is the reason that Rika is being punished. And then after Rika's like goes through the most brutal murder in Higurashi period to me, where it was so drawn out. That was, it must have been like 10 minutes of like her just, oh, I felt so bad for her. Then she wakes up, she's woken up basically by Satoko, which is probably the last person I want to be woken up by after they brutally murder me in a loop. And Rika tells her like, "Oh, like I made a mistake," and all this, kind of alluding to it. But she's kind of, it seems like she's a little bit suspicious of Satoko, and tells her all this stuff, and like she wants to stay in Hanimizawa, like all of this. Like it's pretty touching. They're like hugging each other, and I gotta give a shout out to Zenitsu Agatsuma, like for this hilarious comment. Like it made me laugh so hard because this was a horrific episode, and I'm like, I always read your guys' comments, and he goes in here like saying they finally managed to fit a sort of beach episode, which is all-time great comment. Made me laugh super hard. Homie is looking at things. He's a glass half full kind of guy, and got to give a shout out to him. That was a like god tier tweet. Maybe cracked me up a lot. And from there in the episode, nothing bad happens, which is kind of suspicious that she tells Rika that, or she tells Satoko that, and then nothing bad happens. And at the end of the episode, she runs into Takano and Toмотaki, and Takano says like, "Hey, I've been trying to get a hold of you too. If you haven't watched the original or you don't want any potential theories, this is the time to turn off." A few people have commented on my stuff, on my videos, and I think the first one who brought up this idea, at least that I remember, was I think it's Alex Vasquez, and he had talked about how people who were bad in the original aren't really bad now. And he kind of brought up Takano and was saying that Takano's probably going to be good in this, and might have like some memories. Maybe she's also a looper, but could be a good one. And that Rika is going to need to side with her to be able to like win this battle. I didn't necessarily believe that until this episode of how everything happened. Now, she could actually be bad again, but I kind of feel like she's going to redeem herself in this. Just the way it ended, I did feel like Takano will side with Rika, and they're kind of going to kind of join forces and fight whatever the entity is that's torturing Rika. I'm really going to get into Satoko. I feel like she has to be a looper, and was given her abilities by some dark entity. And I think she has multiple people helping her. So I think that there's at least one other person that's not. I think there's an entity like a demon or a witch or something that's given her the powers and is guiding her. And then there's one person that I think is also helping her for sure. I think that she is the looper. Again, I had talked about how she's talking about stuff outside of those original Higurashi loops. Like once everything's solved, she's talking about how Rika like went away. That kind of gives me a sign that she has a deeper understanding than like the other people who are involved in the show. And other than her kind of scratching her neck, the other signs of the syndrome, like the madness and just like bloodthirst almost, that was gone. Like she was very calculated. Yes, she used the like what she was doing was savage, but we didn't see that craziness in her eyes that we've seen with everyone else who had the syndrome. So other than her scratching her neck and doing things that are bad, it was very, very different. It seemed like someone who was very calculated and knew what was like, hadn't lost their mind. Like, she believed strongly in what she was doing, and she was super calculated. And there was almost like she was giving her pain like medication, which showed that there was like more of a even more of an understanding of everything, where the other people who get the Hanimazawa syndrome, they just bash people's heads in and stuff. So this was very different to me. She gives the reason she gives for the punishment is also something that would bother her specifically. The punishment, yes, it makes sense, or there is logic to Oyashiro being upset that Rika, of all people, did abandon Hanimazawa. But it also would make sense that Satoko, who was like her best friend, they were incredibly close, they lived together, would also be incredibly upset that Rika left and felt like she was abandoned too. So that is kind of more evidence for me that it makes sense why Satoko would be kind of going about this. And she might not be a mastermind, but she's a very important piece. And I feel like another entity, witch, god, something, demon, gave Satoko these powers. Some people have been talking about how maybe Hanyu is actually upset. That could be true. I don't know if I believe that necessarily. I feel like it's probably a witch or something from Umineko. I kind of feel like it's something like that. I'll learn more about that as I'm playing the visual novel. I'm doing that right now. So I can't really give too many thoughts on that, but I can see how that would make sense. So something that slightly discredits me being like thrown off by Satoko like being more in control. She did talk about how she is taking the medication to keep her Hanimazawa syndrome kind of like in check. And she was talking about how doing that every day. And that could be the reason she isn't going into a full rage. I don't know, though. That could be a justification. So that does kind of poke a slight hole, or it gives somewhat of a reason that she was acting different than the other people. But that's just one thing. Maybe they're using her as a red herring, and the excuse is going to be that she was taking the medication, and that's why it was more under control. But I don't see that happening. I think it would make more sense that she's a looper, and that's why she's more cognizant and controlled than someone else. Now here's where I'm going to get into that she's working with another person other than the entity, witch, demon, god, whatever has given her the powers and is probably pulling the strings. And I think it's Irie for a few reasons. One, he was kind of one of the good guys in the previous, and it looks like Takano might be a good guy now, and she was the bad guy before. So it would kind of make sense if those two flipped, just with how this show is kind of structured. And we all know he's like in love with Satoko, like as a daughter that he would want to adopt, but also in a slightly creepy way too. For those of you that have watched the original, it is a bit creepy in my opinion how he acts towards her, like especially with outfits that she would wear and stuff. So he has a deep bond to her. So I could see him being swayed to whatever she wants, and she had to get that pain and numbing medication somehow. And it would make sense. Okay, the doctor in town would be the source that she would be able to get that. Could she have stolen it herself? Sure, but it kind of would make more sense that she has someone on her side helping her. And I think it would be a good twist if he was actually one of the like bad guys in this in Go. But I don't know, maybe there's something discrediting that, but I think that would really make sense. Because just her having like a witch or a demon on her side would be a bit difficult with her just messing up everything. And I feel like she has been probably the one injecting people with the Hinimazawa syndrome and making them go crazy. Irie would be able to uh, get her that supply, and so he is a doctor. He would be able to help her with that, in theory, I believe. Uh, some would say Takano could be doing it, but I would have my money on Irie instead. And yeah, I kind of feel like the end of this show, like the end of it, it's going to end with Rika and Satoko having kind of a face off, and Rika is going to have to decide whether to kill Satoko to like end this loop, or Rika like loves Satoko and can't get over it, and she's going to kill herself instead of killing Satoko. Um, I think there's going to be that kind of dilemma towards the end of the season. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts now. Let me know what you guys think. I feel like those of you who've like thought that Satoko was very suspicious, we got a lot more evidence to support that. She could be being manipulated or something, and this could be a red herring, but now it's kind of looking more like she is deeply involved in some way, just the way she was acting, in my opinion. But I'd love to hear your guys' opinions and theories. Comment your guys' opinions and theories. Again, if I think one's like cool, different, or interesting, like in the next video, I'll end up putting it in there. And I appreciate everyone being like so active in the comments. It's pretty fun seeing you guys like debate and give different theories. And it's been so fun doing this, and you guys have done a good job. Continue putting like spoilers and then return, so that way people who don't want to watch a spoiler portion of this, if they go in the comments, they're not spoiled without being kind of warned. Let me know what you guys think. Give me your theories, and let's have some interesting conversations in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe.